During October on Saipan, the after-battle cleanup is underway as Yank salvage crews help transform this newly won island into a powerful threat against Japanese positions in the Philippines, Central Pacific, and the homeland itself. This used to be the main electricity generating plant. Its two 600-kilowatt generators, the biggest in the entire area, cost 500,000 yen apiece and were capable of lighting the major half of Saipan Island. Now, no longer usable, the engines are dismantled for salvage by technicians of a collection and salvage company. The building will be left standing to become part of the signal depot on this new American advanced base. Battle damaged, this enemy radio tower is useless, except as scrap metal. Acetylene torches slice through the tower legs. Collapsed, the tower is cut into small sections for a truck haul to Saipan salvage yards. The salvage yards are packed with enemy materiel. These searchlights are part of the enormous quantity of equipment the Japs had poured onto the island in their futile attempt to keep Saipan out of American hands. A dynamo is brought to the dump. These are 105-millimeter gun barrels, Japanese. Shell cases already used will be used again. Empty oil drums have been collected, now await shipment back to the United States. These salvaged gas and water cans are to be sent back too. Here they are tied together for easier handling. At a Jap ammunition dump, soldiers inspect enemy landmines and collect abandoned grenades and shells. Captured ammunition is sent to an ordnance unit to be disarmed. The brass will be salvaged. The Japs had placed hand grenades in trees. They were to be retrieved and used during the retreat into the hills. These grenades will be salvaged too, along with Jap field guns and engines that once powered Japanese aircraft. Mission from Noemfoor Island to Boela on the island of Ceram, 330 miles to the southwest. On October 12th, 12 A-20s left Connoisseur and Strip on Noemfoor to bomb and strafe the important Dutch East Indies fuel supply base of Boela. Para-Frags were released from 200 feet. Boela oil, 4% of the annual tonnage produced in the Indies, needs no refining, is used largely for ship's fuel. The preceding week, this and adjacent areas of the Moluccas had been repeatedly attacked. These strikes were designed not only to harass troop concentrations and neutralize airfields, but to choke off the Netherlands oil line, which ultimately would deprive Japan of more than 3/4 of her aviation and naval fuel. On October 11th, Feni-based 10th Air Force Mitchells bombed the railroad bridge at Pinmana. The 12 B-25s picked up lightning escort at Chittagong before bombing this part of the famous Burma Railways just south of Mandalay. The bridge was not hit, but the railroad tracks on its approach were badly torn up. There was no interception, and heavy ack-ack, which the formation met en route, caused no damage. All aircraft returned safely. On October 12th, 12 more Feni-based Mitchells bombed the railroad bridge at Cinthi, 125 miles due south of Mandalay. The first pattern ended 100 feet short of the bridge as the bombs fell into the dry stream bed. Bombs from the second box of planes struck the first and second spans, knocking out the northwest section of the bridge. No air or ground opposition was encountered. On October 13th, 2 squadrons of Fenny-based Mitchells bombed Saint-Louis. The military area was covered with 100-pounders, each of the 24 planes carrying 22 bombs. The total of 528 bombs all fell in the target area, 1,500 feet wide and 1,000 feet long. There was no opposition, either from air or ground. One Boscher received 3 direct hits and exploded in great flame and smoke. On October 14th, Michigan-based 10th Air Force Thunderbolts bombed and strafed the Bomo area. In addition to 500-pounders slung under their wings, the P-47s used landmines to destroy a Jap headquarters on an island in the Irrawaddy River, 6 miles northwest of Bomo. Finishing touch was strafing the area. The group completed a second mission this day, demolishing a bridge on the Burma Road. In general, the fighters were making almost daily runs along these winding valleys and mountains, maintaining attacks on bridges and communications in North Burma to keep supplies from reaching the Japs on the Salween front. On October 22nd, Fenny-based bombers made a strike on the bridge at Tong Dwindi, 120 miles southwest of Mandalay. The first squadron failed to hit the bridge, but the second squadron, bombing from 4,000 feet, hit near enough to damage the center span. Although the bridge was left standing, the center portion appeared to sag. The bomb load was 40 1,000-pounders, fused 1/10 nose and 1/40th tail. Due to malfunction, the bombs of one ship did not release at the proper time and was salvoed in the target area, with the pattern striking in the village on the north side of the river. On October 23rd, 12 Fenny-based Mitchells bombed the bridge at Saipan. 74 500-pounders, fused 1/10 nose and 1/40th tail, were dropped from 9,000 feet. The first string fell into the fields near the bridge. The second pattern started near the southeast approach to the bridge and scored 1 direct hit. This mission was again an attempt to halt the Japs from moving troop reinforcements and supplies into North Burma. These are paper bullets, aimed psychologically at Burmese natives as well as Jap troops in Burma. These leaflets, printed in both native language and English, tell the truth about Allied strength, gains, and fair treatment of war prisoners. Almost daily, the dropping plane of the 10th Air Force operates at low altitudes, without fighter escort. Some leaflets explain the necessity for bombing certain areas, keep the natives posted on the war's progress on all fronts. Gifts are dropped, too, in order to ensure friendly treatment to Allied pilots forced down in the jungle. Sewing kits with brightly colored thread, Christmas candles, and bright colored robes for the native priests. A dangerous, unprotected job over enemy installations, the crew would rather be dropping bombs. Target, warehouses near Jülich, German border town. On September 29th, 9th Air Force Marauders hit this small town, 20 miles from Aachen and 15 miles inside the German border. From 12,500 feet, the 26s knocked out this warehouse that held frontline supplies. Luftwaffe opposition came out of its lull this week to average 200 sorties a day, mainly in the Holland area. Target, marshalling yards at Hengelo in Holland, 7 miles west of the German border. On October 6th, 9th Air Force Marauders crossed the Albert Canal on their way to this important railway junction, 45 miles northeast of Arnhem, where for the previous 10 days, General Montgomery's army had been engaged in fierce fighting. This yard was a vital funnel for supplies and reinforcements to the German army holding the British on the Arnhem front. The formations were subjected to intense and accurate flak during this attack. Target, huge supply houses and barracks at Euskirchen, 30 miles east of Aachen and 18 miles southwest of Cologne. On October 7th, the 9th Marauders took violent evasive action through intense flak to lay 1,000-pounders on these supply houses and barracks, which were being used to reinforce and supply the enemy troops attempting to hold the Siegfried Line against the gathering force of General Bradley's American First Army. Cutting all rail bridges over the Seine and Loire rivers by air attack was a main factor in the success of the Allied invasion in France, isolating the battle area and crippling enemy transportation facilities. The first line of interdiction was established along the Seine between Paris and the sea. At Rouen, the bridge on the right, built in 1940, was destroyed by 2 air attacks. Evidence of precision bombing is in the undamaged Rouen Cathedral among ruins of riverside buildings. Heavies did the major damage May 27th of this year, and fighters finished the job the next day. This other bridge was hit by the RAF, but the Germans were able to maintain one-way traffic at night. Congested retreating German traffic was cut to pieces by strafing. The enemy left 3,000 dead behind. At Pont de L'Arche, the destroyed bridge has been replaced with a ponton bridge. Air Power's first task had been to prevent the movement of German troops from the Calais coast to Normandy as the invasion developed. This had begun D-90 with the bombardment of all rail centers servicing the Calais area. Remnants of the original structure may be seen in the background. At Mantes, a great rail center, both the railroad and highway bridges were downed in 3 air attacks. This long railway bridge on the main line to Paris was hit by U.S. heavies on May 28th and July 8th. Knocking out 1 span at the end and 2 nearer the center. Enemy tanks under their own power had been using this bridge, traveling on an improvised pavement of heavy timbers laid parallel to the tracks. Bombings left rails and ties dangling over the water. Rail lines to Cherbourg and Le Havre were cut by these attacks. The highway bridge at Mantes was hit by 2 waves of U.S. heavies on May 30th. The first wave alone almost demolished it. On the right of the ruins, a ponton bridge carried a limited flow of traffic. At Maisons de Laffitte, our heavies cut the railroad bridge on May 28th. By June 12th, all railroad bridges over the Seine from Conflans just north of Paris to the sea were down, as well as all 13 road bridges. Now another line of interdiction was established along the Loire River. As part of this, the railroad bridge at Orléans was destroyed on June 15th. 7 waves of 8th Air Force bombers got 10 of the 14 spans. Townspeople, amazed at the bombing accuracy, reported damage was confined almost solely to the bridge with but 1 casualty, a German sentry. Land extensions of the Loire and Seine lines of interdiction were meanwhile joined east of Paris, completely sealing off the battle area. While we were building up sufficient force to break out of Normandy, this interdiction along the Loire prevented a similar buildup by the enemy. At Beaugency, 1 span of the highway bridge was smashed. Denied the use of railroad bridges, the Nazis attempted to resupply and reinforce by road. But road bridges too were methodically wiped out, and truck convoys were subjected to devastating fighter and bomber attacks. At Blois, 36 8th Air Force heavies canceled out another railroad bridge over the Loire on June 11th. Near misses blew up sections of steel plating all over the bridge. 1 side span was spattered, and a near miss jarred another span 10 inches out of line. The structure sagged into the water, its center completely knocked out. This interdiction hampered the flow of supplies, clogging lines as transfer were made from trains to truck or boat to train again. Vulnerable to strafing and bombing, traffic jam-ups resulted in heavy losses on riverbanks wherever these bridges were down. At Mont Louis, the rail bridge was hit by 8th Air Force heavies 3 times and once by the 9th Air Force. The 8th's last attack on June 15th put it out of commission, and the 9th's follow-up on July 7th put the finishing touches on it. All spans were battered down, and rails lay looping over rims of foundations and ties. At Tours, our heavies marked off another railroad bridge on June 15th. This second try, after a first failure on June 7th, knocked out all spans, and the river rushed over a wreckage of foundations, ties, and rails. There was the third attack, June 24th. Later, the French built a temporary footbridge alongside. At Cinq Mars, a different span of the railroad bridge was erased each of the first 4 times it was attacked. The 5th and last time, on June 15th, the 8th heavies got 4 more spans, and the Germans gave up repairing the bridge. Honors for the overall interdiction campaign were shared about equally between bombers and fighters. At Saumur, an emergency footbridge was built alongside the highway bridge, which had been destroyed by the RAF. 8th Air Force bombers smashed the railroad bridge on June 24th. In addition to these demolished spans, there was much incidental damage here, and 87 were killed. Chalon's long concrete railroad bridge was eliminated June 9th. Thus, the interdiction campaign, begun in May, set the trap for the destruction of German military power in northern France. And Air Power's final task carpeted the countryside with blasted guns, tanks, trucks, and trains as transportation snarls grew out of the methodical destruction of bridges. During the last half of September, the Luftwaffe reappeared tentatively after a long lull and promptly bore the brunt of fighter attacks. Gun-sight aiming point cameras reveal how surely fighter guns found Nazi planes as well as Nazi transport. An Me-163 Nazi jet-propelled fighter.